doing about 20K a day. Fucking 1 out of 10 op. We're doing about 20K a day, and then I got my Stripe account banned. I'm going from making a couple $1,000s profit a day. Now I'm losing money, $2,000 a day. This dropshipping stuff is just fucking 1 out of 10 opportunity now. It's not a 10 out of 10 opportunity. And so that's coming to this ice bath company. I approached a friend who was doing this, and I saw insane upsides, you know?
What was the thing that you knew this is really going to work? Cameron, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. A little stressed out, but getting through there, you know? Doing the average 22-year-old life in Bali.
We're both in the same age.
Yeah. You're 02, right?
Yeah, 22. We're both. I'm more older, I think.
But older and wiser, or?
We can count that.
Okay.
Bro, I love being around people like you, bro. People like you are always going for shit all the time. I meet you in the recovery sometimes, and you're like, oh, we're building SOPs, we're doing this. And I'm like, oh, that's so much speed.
Oh man, it's just my head, you know, like ideas keep on flowing, and it ends up just overwhelming you. But that's what I like. It's such a weird tandem where it's either I feel extremely overwhelmed or I'm extremely excited, but it's both the same energy, and I'm just fucking craving it like an addict. And building businesses, building new things is what I get high off of. So this is my life.
you always have headphones on. What do you listen to in the morning?
Oh, I listen to binaural beats to calm me down. So I do the sauna, so I get a little bit lower, do an ice bath, so I'm at the perfect level of high, and then I start writing down what I'm going to do today. So then I'm both calm but energized and focused. So in the perfect Zen balance, you can kind of say.
Yeah. You are a guy that I couldn't find anything about on the internet.
Yeah.
Rich and anonymous, huh?
Oh, bro. Hey, look at my companies, man. You could probably find some stuff.
I just typed your name and I couldn't find anything on the internet.
Or you could do Cameron Nice running. Then you can see photos when I was 12 winning cities championships. So that's the only thing you probably find.
I saw your Facebook, your old Facebook.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, with 500 friends. You were sharing progress pictures of your business, like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4.
Yeah, bro. I was trying to be not like a guru or something like that, but I understood how to optimize a business, but I could not get to stage 1. I get to stage 30 very quickly. So I knew how to optimize, but not get the initial ground running. So at the start of my e-commerce or business ventures, I was doing that, where showing these case studies and hopefully finding other people that I could optimize and scale their business for.
You started in the wild world of e-commerce. You are really good at scaling businesses, putting systems in place. That is a skill that is so rare. You are also a co-founder of an ice bath business that is going insane right now.
Yeah, it's fun.
How did you come to care about making money online and e-commerce?
So do you want me to start from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, fuck it. Let's. So I was in grade 8. I've always been very craving for money. So I used to do stuff that wasn't the most amazing thing for money. I would hustle for money. Like, that has always been something that is lack in my money, in my life. Not from, I guess you could say, my parents had money, but I did not have money. I never felt like I had money. So I as any young guy, I looked on YouTube, and I found dropshipping. That was the first thing. And this was back in the 2015-16 days, where it was completely the Wild West. Like, you could launch anything with just a white background, free plus shipping, and you could make crazy money. So my first steps was, I was in grade 8. Remember, I was in grade 8, and I found this guy called Rory McInerney, this Irish dude. This Irish dude was doing Instagram posts, influencer posts off of meme pages, and basically doing free plus shipping and making a couple $100s a day from doing this shit. So I did it as a grade 8. I launched my first ad. It was a free boxing chain necklace, free plus shipping. I did $200 in that first day, spent $50 on ads. And then I did the same ad, and it failed, and I just gave up. And I was like, okay, fuck it. That's what happens to everybody. They test it out once. And then, yeah, man, I decided going to grade 12, that I was like, fuck it. Like, I know if I go to university, I know I'm never going to have the chance ever again to start my own business because my parents will always push me towards the university direction. So I decided my last year of high school is going to take the year online and just go full into my business. So broke up with my girlfriend, isolated myself, and basically just worked. I woke up at 4 a.m. every single morning. And for the first 4 months, I wasn't making shit. I was losing all my money. I started with $5,000, went to my first, or lost all the way to about $500, then found my first successful product. And in about 8 days, it was doing about $4,000 Canadian a day, making $1,000 profit. Got banned a week later, but like still, I hit my first success. I got that first high. And then basically, all the way up until this period, a lot of different ups and downs, challenges faced. I can go into that if you want, but till now, was doing dropshipping, hit my first very big success in 2022. I basically found European dropshipping. We went from 15 employees to 60 employees at our height and went to doing about $13 million a year in euros. And then shit went tits up in 2023.
That's badass, man.
But yeah, man, like, end of the day, I realize now, even though I did all those numbers, it's not fulfilling, and you're just chasing that next high. You don't feel like you're fulfilled in anything. So that's coming to this ice bath company. I approached a friend who was doing this, and I saw insane upsides, like I could go into details, but insane upsides. And I saw that I could actually, in this cheesy fucking sense, I could make a difference, like it's actually a product that makes people feel good. It actually makes a product where people will use this, like people will actually love this. And it feels good selling something that is actually positive.
So I've never done this type of business, e-commerce, but I've had a lot of friends who did. And the only thing that I hear, of course, beside making money, is that my Stripe got blocked, my Facebook ads is suspended. I have so much competitors on my product now. It used to work. How do you tolerate this type of risks?
That's exactly the reason why my business went to shit in 2023. We were doing about $20K a day, and then I got my Stripe account banned. And I was like, holy shit, like I'm going from making a couple $1,000s profit a day. Now I'm losing money because I have an overhead of $2,000 a day. I have to figure out some shit. But over time, you realize that if there's a will, there's a way. You're going to find it out. Most people are just bitches and they quit. Like with the payment process solution, there's now new solutions. With other things, there's other solutions. It's just, the problem is that like, if you look at business, not business models, but business opportunities, this dropshipping stuff is just a fucking 1 out of 10 opportunity now. It's not a 10 out of 10 opportunity. And that's where you're saying with all these risks and all these problems, other competitors coming in, anybody can sell my own product. It's just like, if you tell this to someone, it's like, why the fuck would you go into this red bloody ocean? Find your blue ocean. And that's my biggest tell to say is like, find your fucking blue ocean, because what's going to happen is things get harder and harder and harder if it's extremely easy to get into. And that's what was e-commerce. So at some point, it was super easy to get into. People made a crazy amount of money. And then things got extremely hard. And as I said, all these people are having all these sorts of problems.
Damn, $30 million per year. That's crazy. What was the thing that you knew this is really going to work that got you to $30 million per year? Was it a product, or was it some...
No, it was a system. So everything, I've only made money because of system. So I found that if I tested 10 products in Europe across 8 different countries, if I tested those 10 products and I had a success rate of 15%, don't be a retard, just test more products. So I tested 600 products that year, and everything was custom funnels, custom ads, custom landing page images. And that was the system that worked. But the problem is that we were just throwing shit against the wall. And over time now it gets so competitive where you have to throw better shit. And if you're just throwing low quality stuff against the wall, you're going to have less of a success rate. So that's what ended up, I guess, not screwing me over, but what's ended up was my downside, but was at the upside at that time. So yeah, that answers your question.
So how do you choose product? Is there a methodology around it, or just a gut feeling thing?
No, there's definitely a methodology. Like, you need to make sure that your perceived value is high, that your cost of goods extremely low, that the types of ads that you're running, because we obviously find ads from the USA, and then we see, okay, hey, is this ad extremely compelling to me? Let me now recreate it within my own fashion with another influencer in another country, and that will 100% bang off. So it's just like looking at the creative that another person's running, because that's 90% of the product nowadays is the creative. Because I've seen products that have died out, but then someone else just has some fucking wacky ass concept and then just scales it to the moon.
Wow.
Like, for example, there's something called anxiety calming dog bed, okay? Mm-hmm. Some person was like, oh, let's do it for cats. It's like some bullshit like that, like
that's crazy.
And then they make a ridiculous amount of money. And I know a lot of guys who've done that. Like, for example, we sell a pheromone perfume. This one, people do it for women, or people do it for men. Track the woman that you want, whatever the fuck it is. But like, it's just, in general, you're finding a different angle. You're finding ads that are untapped, and you're just, how I looked at it is like, you're finding something that was working in another country. You're moving into an untapped country. You're finding a blue ocean. You're testing that product, and if that ocean is correct, that you're going to be able to scale it. And that's how I made all my money.
Wow. So you've made. Let's take me back to that year where you said it crashed down. The business crashed down. How did you feel about that, and what was the action plan?
Well, the big problem why it crashed down, a little bit of personal issues, but majority of it was focusing on way too much shit. And what happened was, I hated e-commerce that much that I was pivoting into fucking AI. I was pivoting into virtual assistant outsourcing. I was pivoting into anything else except for my main business. And what I did to change that around was like, okay, fuck all this other stuff. Let me stop losing money. And then I went back into it. And then I did fuck up. I lost another 150K, but that was another story. But then I went back on, and I started making money basically since September last year. So just recovered after 6 months, and then started making good money again. But as I said, I'm throwing that all away. Ice baths are the full focus now, trying to disregard everything else as, there's so many amazing opportunities, but you're going to make every opportunity complete shit if you're not focusing on one.
So now you ditched the e-com business completely?
No, I'll still have that run, but until the ice bath company hits to a certain threshold, then I'll move over, because obviously my overhead is quite a lot for the e-commerce company. And if the ice bath company's not doing that volume yet, I can't transfer over those employees.
It's funny how do you remember the first time we met?
Yeah, I met with Mr. Rowdy.
Mr. Rowdy, and you were talking about a crypto scam that you got into. You remember? I think you lost 15 grand or something. I just came back from Dubai.
No, this was no. James lost like multi six figures.
Yeah. James lost, but you were too.
Yeah, I was buying something nefarious that I shouldn't be mentioning on a podcast, and I got was I not bait and switched? I was trying to exchange ERC to TRC and this swap tool. Long story short, I went to Discord. They sent me a link, fake customer service, and my dumbass just... Yeah, I've lost a lot of money from getting scammed. Bear in mind, says, no, I'm not perfect. I made money, but I've lost a lot of money.
But that's how you make money in the first place.
Yeah, man. Like, honestly, the more you're willing to try, the more you are going to make. Like, you have to fucking fuck up to make money. 100%.
So I'm so fascinated about this business model that you are in right now, the ice bath. I think I've first heard about it from this podcast, My First Million. They were talking about the cold plunge. Mm-hmm. They're doing insane numbers on their first year. They gave out like 1,000 plunges, and the product is so crazy that it works really well with influencer marketing. So if you guys want an influencer to promote, I'm here.
Oh yeah, bro. hey man, we have production coming in, so that's actually a thing that we're trying to do, bro. Like, and that's how they fucking did it. Plunge. I'm not gonna be a was it like a competitor that says I'm gonna be better than them, but it's just they got to the first stage and they gave out the Plunge to influencers.
1,000. That's crazy.
But it was just it was like a no-brainer model. You were the first one to, and all these rich people want an ice bath. If you sell 5 ice baths, we make way more money than us giving you one, right? And that's what they did. I don't know if they did it to the level that we want to hopefully do it till, but I think proof is in the pudding. Hopefully I don't fuck up myself.
I've tried the barrel. It's really good product. You already mentioned that it's getting way better now.
Yeah, no, it's really getting really good. My mentor Sai, he's coming in to do the production. So basically, he's completely fixing all the minor issues like plumbing issues. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the back end of it. We're going to get an app onto it and be able to really put this product out there worldwide, as well as we'll be able to service it worldwide. That Plunge cannot do this right now because I think right now before they're manufacturing in China, now they're in America, but depending on how you manufacture it, is the ability to service on the back end, and the way we've manufactured it, we make it extremely easy. If a problem happens, that we're able to fix it. So I'm very, very excited about this opportunity, and we have a lot of unique selling points, and my co-founder Alex started about 2 years ago. He worked through all the kinks and all the errors, and now we're able to really scale. So I'm very, very excited for this opportunity. It's a lot of bumps on the road, you could kind of say, but I think with any amazing business, that's what's going to happen.
What is your focus on the business now?
Oh man,
Or are you focused on it completely?
Bro, yeah, no, I'm focused on it like a 90%. The other 10%, I'm trying to just still manage my old business, as I still need to keep the employees active. But it's basically building the entire back end. I'm not selling only an ice bath. We're maintaining an ice bath on the back end. Everything needs to have SOPs and systems to run to be able to sell to 400 or 500 units a month, and that's what I kind of came in as the role, is to build out those systems for us to actually scale. It's been probably one of the hardest things I've done because it's building out an entire business extremely quickly to be able to help for that entire scale. But I believe I'm just around the corner, and I'm just trying to focus as I said, to build a system where we're able to scale for the back end. Is this product, it's not like a $30 product anymore. It's a $5,000 product. You have to give amazing service to the people on the back end. And we want to give them better service than the other companies are. We want to have a couple month check-in every single couple months. We want to have maybe gift boxes, cool experiences when you open up the product, because all these small little details, when you're appeasing to a $5,000-$6,000 client, like, they want to have these additional experiences, and we want to be able to be completely different than the other companies. We're making everything here in Bali. We're handcrafting it. We're not getting it from China. We make all the electronics here, and we have a lot of cool shit that's coming out. I just want to get it out there.
That's crazy. So I heard a lot about you in terms of putting systems in place and the SOPs. You're really good at this, but how do you do that? How do you create these things in place in such a massive volume?
Bro, that's I'm having a hard time right now.
Bro, me too. I'm trying to create this for my business too, and I'm like, oh, should we?
Man, what I realized, what I kind of messed up on this business was just the way I built my old business. There were still stages to get to that big scale, right? And what I fucked up right now was I thought of 0 to 500 scale. So when I built the system, it'd go straight to 500. But in reality, I should have done that at stages, where I built to 50, then I built where
50 what?
Where we could handle 50 units a month, then build from 50 to 250 units. Because the problem is that if I'm building to 0 to 500, the complexity to handle that's what I was thinking of, is is fucking complex. And what ends up happening is you just keep on delaying on different things. You get sidetracked because you have other problems to handle. And you end up never finishing out the system. It becomes way too overwhelming and it doesn't feel like you got something done. So what I would recommend is to slow it down a little bit. Make it where you have your first goal. That's not your end goal, but that's your first goal. Because once you can get that, once you get someone in the system to at least operate to that level, then you're able to really build on the next level faster. Because as I said, with what I did, I was building a system to 500 units a month versus let's first do to 100 units. And that would take me 1/8 of the time because it's so much easier to not think of all the other specific nuances when you're handling such a complex system that's going from purchase to maintenance to after sale to and just wrapping all of that in with a bow.
It's a big goal to have like 500.
I've created like fucking 80 documents so far.
80, do you write?
50, 60 documents, something around there. Yeah.
Like written?
Yeah, written documents.
Damn.
Because how I create the structure on this is first there's a customer service and there has to be a financial person and there has to be a delivery and maintenance management person. And you have to make sure that the systems flow from this step to this step to this step. And the thing is that if you have different products needs different questions, when you send it to a purchasing person, sometimes there's installments, sometimes there's buyout after you rent it. So if there's 4 different payment methods, then you have to make sure you're able to map that on the back end. So anyways, it's just, I thought of it way too complex, okay?
It is too complex. What stage in the business people need to start thinking about this? At what stage?
I think you have to make your first amount of money before you're able to do this 100%. But then actually, what I would say is you first want to get some type of way being successful. So if you're running, let's go back to drop shipping. So what that means is you have to learn what's your flow of creating a product, creating ads, launching out the ads, and managing the ads. That's basically 4 different steps. Once you have that 4 different steps and you're actually making profit, then how do you create a system that includes these 4 steps but doesn't allow one person to operate all 4 steps? Because the problem is if one person operates all 4 steps, you're giving away the entire pie to one person, as well as they're probably not going to do as well as if you just specialize on each step. And how I did it was, if you looked at my mass testing dropshipping, I chose the products, I priced the products, I had someone to copyright the product. Then what ended up happening, I had an image editor to create out the landing page images and the image ads. Then I had a video editor to create out the video ads. Then I had a translation team that would then translate all the ads, landing page images to the 6 different countries. And that's how I would launch things out. So I had 6 different teams that would do that in that cycle. And that's how I was able to efficiently, at good scale, launch it out. And at each step, there were managers to double check everything. So that's how I did my system. But then it would just circulate like that. And then obviously media buying, whatever. But how I built that up was doing it step by step. So what I should have done in my case is I should have first, let's get the customer service system done. Once that's done, let's me add on something next, then add on something next.
Yeah.
Instead, I build all of 5 at one time, and
it costs you a lot.
What?
To maintain these staff to do this type of thing.
Yeah, I'm like at about 40K burn rate. So not insane amount, but yeah, pretty penny, you could say.
Yeah.
There's people spending way more, for sure.
No, that's a lot of burn rate.
Yeah.
But you have how many people on the team right now?
I think it's 35 to 40.
35. You mentioned 50 before.
Yeah, so I fired a big chunk.
Is that because of AI?
No, I actually, I should have incorporated more AI, but no, that wasn't because of it. That was because I realized the mass testing model was not something that was going to work for long term. You have to have higher quality now. So that's what I realized, and that's how I did my switch. Before it was mass testing because you could test out a product. I knew I could make $50,000 to $100,000 in sales. So that would be about $20,000 per profitable product. If I test 10 products, I lose about $3,000 off there. So I always make 15 to 18K every 10 products I test. That's how I looked at it. However, now what's happening is your success rate's going extremely low. So you want to make sure that this product scales for a long time. And what the problem with that is now you have to focus on the creatives versus testing the products. And that's how I basically lost my business, was because I focused way too much on the testing product versus the scaling. And the last 8 months was focusing on scaling, getting better quality, better landing pages, getting better ads, getting UGC, that type of stuff, where I was able to prolong a life of a product for 8-9 months now versus it dying off after 3 months.
So what was the main skills that built the foundation for you to build IcePath now?
Main skills. So like, what do you mean by that?
So when you were building the e-commerce business, what were the foundation skills that you have learned that made you able to scale any business, basically?
I don't know. I would say it this way, but at the same time, this is what's hindered me. So I'll give it to you. So it's hindered me to make hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's done well for me to make my first millions of dollars. So what that is that I take everything on board and I create the systems. I'm the idea guy. So I'm working every single day to fix problems, build systems, so other people who are not thinking for themselves, instead just a cog in my system, they're just working. And the problem with that is, or the good thing about that is that if you build a well-maintained system, you're going to be able to always hit this level, right? However, what's going to happen is slowly the competition is going to get creeping up and up. And if the team is never improving, you don't have thinkers on your team, people who are iterating, developing, you're always going to stay like this. And that's what happens to my business, is that my team, they were never iterating, they were never testing. This was always a ceiling. The ceiling was the limit of me. But what I realized, all my friends who are fucking killing it right now, is they have solid guys. Like, they have only 10
A-level talent.
Bro, they only have 10, like my friend Vlad, he only has 10, 15 people. But he's doing fucking a lot of money every single day. I'm not going to put it out there, but a lot of money every single day, because he has killers, bro. He is killer. The Germans, man. Fucking
Germans, man, bro.
Bad, damn, bro. I guess good stock he could sign a stake.
Do you know how does he hires this type of A-level talent? It's a skill.
It's a skill. He said a bit of it. Actually, one of them was going on podcasts. So he was working underneath this guy called Alex Fedotov. He got a couple of good hires through there. But a big thing was actually his staff. He has insanely, how do I say, high requirements for people. Very high. Like he will fire 80-90% of people. Like, he has crazy high requirements. He does pay well to that.
Yeah, I think
but
so.
He has very high requirements.
In 2020, The Morning Brew was acquired for $75 million. A precipitous climb for the company that just 5 years earlier was started out of a University of Michigan dorm room. 2 years later, they are on pace for $75 million in annual revenue. And in this conversation with CEO Austin Reef, we talk about the metrics that matter to a company like The Morning Brew, what he's learned about hiring, scaling a company, and how they've implemented the EOS model to get outstanding results. Stay with us. You had a very interesting tweet recently. There is no industry in the world that is easier to get to an 8-figure exit than digital media. But there's also no industry harder to get to a 10-figure valuation than digital media. Can you explain what that means in more detail, and maybe what you're experiencing that made that pain or that realization so clear?
Yeah, so whenever anyone starts off a question with "you tweeted recently," my heart drops. I'm like, oh no, like what are you going to bring up? But no, this is a good one. I have a lot of conviction in this. So first off, let's define digital media. I'm not really referring to Netflix or anything like that, right? I'm talking about digital publishing, right? the BuzzFeed Vox, Morning Brews, all these companies that grew up over the course of 10 or 15 years. And I think the challenge with most of these companies is the pro, right? Why is it easy to get to 8 figures of revenue or maybe even 8 figures of profit? It's really inexpensive to create content, right? Creating a tweet costs nothing. Creating video content, we're creating video content and audio content now. It's costing us whatever Riverside costs. So, very, very inexpensive. So creating content, inexpensive. Distributing content, very inexpensive, right? You have these platforms, and if you can find fit on a platform before they change an algorithm, you can build a great audience on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube. And so it's really inexpensive and allows you to test and iterate and get your voice out there and create a brand. We did it over newsletters. Other people done it on YouTube, on podcasting. And so that's why it's actually not that hard to build an audience and then sell that audience or sell to that audience. The reason why it's so hard to create, let's call it $1 billion company, is because the shelf life of content is like 3 seconds, right? I create a tweet, that content's good for a very short period of time. We create a newsletter. That newsletter is good for what? A day, maybe? And so with a digital publisher, you're amortizing this content over the course of minutes or hours versus Netflix, which is another media company, right? They create Squid Games, and people watch that for years and years and maybe decades, right? And so you can spend so much more money on content. You can invest in it, right? And therefore, you can amortize that content over a longer period of time. But when you're a digital publisher creating news or even evergreen content, like it's really the value is not there. And so it is very difficult over time to build a multi-billion-dollar brand in media. Not to say it can't be done. There are people doing it, but it's incredibly difficult versus software. Again, has very different economics. Software is economics similar to Netflix. You create software, it's good forever or close to forever, and you can amortize that over many customers in a long period of time.
And, akin to, a recent tweet, there's a lot of noise in Twitter, but there is also signal if you're paying attention to and listening to the right people. And so the reason that put an antenna up for me is this is high signal because you are the CEO of one of the flagship vanguard digital media upstarts that's pointed to as being, blue chip frontline as it pertains to growth and what's accomplished. So it's particularly interesting when you're the one kind of waving that flag and not, some VC that got wrecked because they got into BuzzFeed or Vice or something.
Yeah, I mean, look, right. I am talking my book a little bit. We didn't raise capital, and so I don't believe media companies should raise capital or not a lot of capital, especially not venture capital. So yeah, I think it's incredibly difficult to do. It's hard to make $1 billion company or create one anyways, but particularly in media. And so it is hard. And if I build a $999 million company, I'll be happy. So I'll be okay with that. I think understanding the potential of what you're building is incredibly important. What we've seen in the last couple of years, so many people, right, have raised if their company can be worth 10, 20, 50 billion. And it just, they've turned themselves into a bit of a zombie.
So talk to me about where Morning Brew stands now. People that are paying attention, they know that there was a majority acquisition of the firm by Business Insider. But talk to us about, I looked at LinkedIn, it looked like there's over 300 people working at your company now.
Yeah, so Morning Brew was majority acquired, technically by Axel Springer. Axel Springer owns Insider and a bunch of other. They just bought Politico. It's a very large German media and holding company, and that deal happened end of 2020. Since then, we've really taken off from really every metric. So we've gone from about 50 employees to about 300. Revenue went from 20 million to 70 million or so. Profitability's increased, and so we've really just grown a ton since then across not just newsletters. So after we launched Morning Brew, we launched the Morning Brew for X industry or X job function, Marketing Brew, Retail Brew, HR, Healthcare Brew launched today. If anyone listening or watching this works in any of these industries, definitely go sign up. They really are great publications. And so that's where we went next. And now we're starting to expand beyond that into multimedia content, audio, video content. as well as other revenue streams. So we built an education team, which is our first foray into direct-to-consumer revenue.
And so one of the elements here when it pertains to multimedia, I have so many questions. You gave me like 3 different pathways to go down. So I'm actually going to reel it back in and go to specifically one associated with the acquisition. That rate of growth and the increase of employees and all these other things, can you break down part of what was unlocked or enabled as a part of the acquisition? Was it cross promotion between these other brands? Was it access to existing, sales infrastructure? Like, how do you conceptualize the before and after of Morning Brew's operations after that majority acquisition occurred?
Yeah, so it was actually none of that, right? It wasn't synergy with any other company, but it was access to capital. So we've been bootstrapped for so long, and what Axel Springer gave us the ability to do, number one, it gave us a little bit of job security for people we hired. So people were more willing to come to Morning Brew if we had the backing of Axel Springer. And number two, it allowed us to be a little bit riskier because Axel Springer wasn't going to let Morning Brew go out of business. And so we were able to ramp up investment a little bit faster than if we would have otherwise if we didn't have an owner. And so we were able to invest more than historically we would have because we didn't want to, cash was a concern. When you're owned by a $10 billion company, cash becomes less of a concern because of the infrastructure.
Like from fancy a fancy upbringing, and that's what my parents did. They had a fruit stand, and through years of hard work and going through different routes, it turned into like a produce brokerage business. It basically just means you call a farmer and you buy $1 million of onions from a farmer, and then you call Walmart and you sell them that load of onions for $1.1 million, and then
we said, what if Alex pitches and Austin walks around with like a printed out Excel document basically and basically stares people in the eyes until they give you your email? And that's what we did. So I would spend 20
That's like door-to-door sales of,
it really
of a newsletter list. But I like it.
I would walk around the big lecture hall, 500 people, and I kind of just stand there. Give me your email. Give me your email. And we get seriously.
Did you get big on them? Like, did you puff your chest up and hand it to them?
He would look into their soul.
Give me your email.
If I spoke in front of 500 people, I was getting 500 emails because there's a whole classic thing like the number 2 fear in life is public speaking, and number 1 is public speaking, 2 is death. Like people would rather be in the casket than speaking at the eulogy. That was me at the time, and so I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I need those emails.
What's up, everyone? I'm Alex Lieberman.
And I'm Sophia Amoruso.
Yo, this is Jesse Puggi.
And this is The Crazy Ones. What's up, everyone? This is Alex Lieberman, co-founder and chairman of Morning Brew, and we were back with another episode of The Crazy Ones, the best startup show on planet Earth. We're trying something a little bit different today. My co-host Jesse and Sophia are on a well-deserved break at the end of the year. And so if you're listening to or watching this episode, I believe it is January 3rd. So wishing you a happy new year and a ton of good things to come. So here's what we're trying today. My co-founder Austin and I have talked about the Morning Brew story at length on other podcasts, but very rarely, I don't even know if ever have we talked about our story together in a moderated conversation. And so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about the journey of Morning Brew, the idea, the challenges, the wins, what comes after the brew, what the business is like now, the future of media. And to have us have this conversation is our good friend Sahil Bloom. Sahil is an investor, he's a writer, he's a prolific tweeter. He has done all of the things. And so we're so lucky to be joined by him today. So I'm going to pass the mic to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm excited to get to do this. I'm going to set one ground rule at the outset of this, which is no PR bullshit responses to anything that goes on. So that's the only ground rule. And other than that, I think we can kick it right off. But excited to be here. I want to start with something that you guys both tweeted just recently the other day, which was a screenshot. I think, Austin, you tweeted it first. It was a screenshot of an email with names blacked out. So I'm not going to ask you who actually said it. It'll be in the show notes and we'll share it. But basically, it was a rejection email from presumably an investor criticizing a few factors about the Morning Brew, in particular, criticizing whether or not it was ever going to be able to make any money, any revenue. And what you tweeted was basically like, look, if we had listened to these people that were doubters of the idea, we wouldn't be where we're sitting today. So I want to start there. What's going through your head when you guys are receiving presumably a bunch of emails like this back in 2015?
Yeah, I can start. So in 2015, Morning Brew wasn't a business, right? It was a side project, a hobby, a fun thing just to stay upstate in the business world for ourselves and help our friends. And one thing I remember in the early days that I was actually pretty surprised about, and now I look back and I think it's awesome, was how relentless Alex was about getting in touch with everyone, right? Talking to people, meeting people, whether it was advertisers, investors, whatever. And Alex, I mean, it's a professor at Michigan in the email, and Alex emailed the professor, and most people had pretty good answers. Most people, and we sat down with most people in Michigan in the entrepreneurship clubs and whatever, and we sent this email, and we had heard that this guy, this professor, was a little abrasive, and we definitely didn't expect to get that email. I don't blame him, by the way. Like, I think at the time we also didn't think it was a business, or at least not a potential big business. So I don't blame him, but that was definitely fuel to the fire.
Do you remember it being fuel at the time, though, or was it just like a blow?
Yeah, I mean,
it's easy to call it fuel in hindsight. You know, like these type of things are easy to say, like, oh, yeah, I knew I was going to keep grinding, whatever. Like Alexis Ohanian has his with being called a rounding error by the Yahoo team. This is kind of your moment of that. Was it fuel at the time?
It's so hard to know how much is actually like revisionist history. Like, even when we tell the original story of Morning Brew and how it started, like the original insight, I oftentimes will ask myself the question, is like that the original story, right? Because we've told it so many times now that I forgot there's some kind of principle where it's like, if you tell a false truth enough times, that becomes the truth. And so like, I can't remember actually what the thought was in late 2014 when I started writing this thing and when Austin joined on. And so I would say for me, actually, there was probably some fuel from people saying no. And by the way, this teacher, we're definitely not just picking on this teacher, because actually Alexis Ohanian, he had replied to Austin's tweet and basically was like, I really like constructive rejections, which I totally agree with. Like this teacher was not a dick in the tweet. Like, he was constructive. He gave reasons for why he wouldn't invest. For me, actually, when we were fundraising, the worst thing was like family and friends or people peripheral that would just string along these conversations and be like 3 months of them saying, hey, I'm going to look at the materials tomorrow. Hey, I have this question. They would have you answer all these questions. And then after 3 months tell you that they didn't want to invest. Like, that was the worst. But yeah, it was this teacher. I remember Mark Cuban, we also asked him to invest. And I give so much props to Mark, because he is someone that, irrespective of his success, he still emails with founders at the earliest stages all the time. But basically, he had a similar response to this teacher where he was like, there are a ton of newsletters. I don't get the difference. What's the differentiator? That was the gist of what he said. I think that was the fuel for me. Actually, I think a fair bit of the fuel was people who I think doubted me or belittled me throughout like middle school and high school. And I felt a chip on my shoulder from that, for sure. And then I think a piece of it also was just like, you know, you guys know this, but I lost my dad actually right before the brew started. A week before junior year of college, the brew started first semester senior year at Michigan. And so there was, I would say that was actually the number one driver, was this kind of just focus to create something of value, so kind of the Lieberman household wouldn't have to worry again, because that was actually probably the number one anxiety that was taking up space in my brain.
I don't think I knew that, the timing connection between your father passing away and the starting of the brew, which is a really interesting insight. Were you like an entrepreneurial kid? Like prior to your father passing away, had you always thought you were going to start something and go build something, or do you think that ended up being a spark of wanting to go create something with your name attached to it?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, now I couldn't envision doing anything but this. But no, growing up, all I could think about doing was being a trader on Wall Street. And
it's so strange.
And the reason was, again, that's what my parents did. So it wasn't like me thinking on behalf of myself and what I knew I enjoyed versus didn't enjoy. It was just like, my dad's a trader. That's what he does. My mom's a salesperson at a bank. That's what she does. I just want to be like them. And so I actually thought it was the opposite of independent thinking. It was dependent thinking for my whole life. I was for sure creative growing up. Like I remember as early as like first or second grade, this is like the smallest thing, but I remember wanting to create a pen highlighter combo. They didn't sell those at the time. So I snipped a pen in half and I snipped a highlighter in half. I taped them in the middle. And so I could both write notes and highlight with the same instrument. And then at sleepaway camp, I had a shoe shining business. So like, I like tinkering, but no, I never had the thought like I'm going to go start my own business. You know, like my co-host for the Crazy Ones, Jesse Puggi, like his dad's an entrepreneur with a travel agency. He always knew he was going to start something. That wasn't me.
What about you, Austin?
So I grew up in the suburbs of Baltimore, and no one who I knew, no one's parents were in finance. Like I didn't even know what Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs were growing up. But I went to this very small private school, and so I wanted the exact opposite when I went to college. So I went to Michigan. I think you were similar private school. And from that moment on, I was like, oh, all the kids who look like me and sound like me are all going to investment banking. Like that was the thing at Michigan. And so I kind of followed the herd. I was a sheep, just following the herd.
Was it like a fraternity thing? Like, I mean, were you guys in fraternities and like they had a pipeline to Wall Street, or was it just all your friends, people around you?
It was a frat thing, but it was a business school thing.
Okay.
Right? Like if you're in the business school, goal number one, work at an investment bank. Goal number two, if you can't do that or you're really crazy, go work at McKinsey. Like that's really unique. That's really different. And
scraping the bottom of the barrel at old McKinsey.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like that was the goal. But I think looking back in hindsight, like looking at my parents even, they're both entrepreneurs, just not in the sense that we think today, right? They're not internet entrepreneurs. My mom was a dentist and she's owned her own dental practice for 20 years now. And so, you know, she's a business owner, right? So the people I aspired to were small business owners. I mean, small is relative, right? There were some very wealthy people in Baltimore, but, you know, a real estate person, a dentist, a lawyer. But I was really attracted to the people who were lawyers, but they were really business owners. And the business they were in happened to be law. And I interned at a law firm senior year, and the managing partner sat me down, and he's like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a businessman. I just happen to be in the business of law. I was like, oh, that's interesting framing.
Part of me likes those kind of things and it's like good story, and then part of me is like just rolling my eyes like, all right, guy, come on. Come on.
He was ready to drop that nugget.
Yeah, I know. Like
years.
He probably dropped it on 100 young people that are out there.
But it worked.
By the way, side note on McKinsey, if you ever want to just get absolutely wrecked in life, go and do a McKinsey interview with no preparation.
Is that what you did?
I did that, and it is not pretty. Like you get asked to do like, you know, how many golf balls fit in a school bus on the fly. Don't recommend it. Don't recommend it. Okay, so you guys knew each other or didn't at Michigan?
I'd say knew of each other.
Okay.
We were in the same fraternity.
Okay.
I wouldn't even say knew of each other.
Okay.
We like kind of, but barely, because you were 2 years older.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we really knew each other through Tamid, right? Which was a club we were in. But we were in the same fraternity, but like barely knew of each other, right? Like the most distant knew of each other possible, I'd say.
So then what happened actually? Like what is the story of how you guys ended up coming together? Alex, you had the insight around this business. From what I understand, it was like, and maybe this is the PR answer that you've given in the past or the narrative revisionist history of like you were tutoring a lot of kids as, you know, a side hustle and making some money doing that. You realized that a lot of them had this need for simplified business insights. Like it was hard to keep up with everything that was going on in the world, whether that was for interviews or things that they were having to go out and prep for, or just for life. And there wasn't anything that was speaking their language in a simple way.
Yeah, I'll let Alex tell the story. But first, I just want you to say how busy you were senior year and tell everyone what class you were taking to keep your time busy.
Yeah, well, so I think I only had to take 2 classes my whole senior year. And
did you already have a job lined up?
Yeah, and you know the way that it typically works in finance is you have your junior year internship. I received a job offer for after my junior internship, which is a whole story in itself, because I would say I've most of my life been a perpetually late person, and I would say I've turned a corner. In the last year, I've actually been on time or early most of the time, other than a recent breakfast we had where I took a wrong turn.
Or how about the party we had for someone who left Morning Brew?
The party we had for someone who left Morning Brew.
Did you show up really, really late for a party?
You were a little late, but we'll get back to that.
I actually don't remember.
Alex does have this bad habit of trying to drive from Hoboken to New York City to come to things, which like you're going to be late to half of things that happen just from traffic.
If there's one thing that you take from this podcast, it is that Hoboken is wildly underrated as the 6th borough of New York. But anyway, what I was going to say is I did get this job at Morgan Stanley, so I didn't have to re-recruit my senior year. Only had to take 2 classes. I was spending a lot of time playing FIFA and NHL, living in off-campus
like
housing.
a good frat boy.
Yeah. I was like the most non-fratty person in a frat. Actually,
I can kind of see that. I feel like Austin is way frattier than you as like an overall person.
And I wasn't very fratty, but I was way frattier than Alex.
I'm just like a little nerdy schneebly.
Yeah.
And
I've looked at your old Facebook pictures. I definitely agree with that.
And the very funny, quick story of how I got into a fraternity at Michigan is, suppose when you do a fraternity at any school, you're supposed to do a bunch of them, like not put all of your eggs in one basket so that you don't risk getting rejected from the one you tried out. I didn't know these rules, so I just recruited or
they call it rushing, I believe.
Rushed.
Shows how much of a frat boy he is. I just did recruiting at AE Pi.
Yeah, I was asked that question about fitting tennis balls in a 747 at AE Pi. And the only reason I got into AE Pi,
AE Pi. I was just throwing out the only Jewish fraternity I know.
The only reason I got into AE Pi is because the rush chair at the time, so the person who's responsible for ultimately choosing who gets into the pledge class, true story, that summer before, he got into an accident with my mom. And everyone was fine. That's why I'm talking about it now. Yeah, he was celebrating his 21st birthday, was joyriding his dad's Mercedes, and as my mom was making a left turn, crushed her driver's side door. They had to use the jaws of life to get her door off. Like, she was totally fine, but like, it was a very scary incident. Like, if she wasn't driving a big truck, it could have been an issue. And when I first met him there, I knew who he was, and I was like, by the way, I just want to make the connection here. And he just
almost killed my mom.
He just never looked at me in the same way after.
Oh, and you were a shoe-in from that day.
It is 100% why I got into the fraternity, and it explains why I'm not fratty at all.
That is a pretty good story. I like that. Yeah. Okay, so then how did you guys actually meet?
Yeah, so I started writing this daily newsletter at the time, which was called The Market Corner. And again, I don't know what the actual reason I started writing this was, but it lived somewhere between selfishness and selflessness. On the selfish side, me feeling like I'm going to be wildly unprepared for Morgan Stanley when I graduate if I only do 2 classes and play FIFA the whole year, and that's why
you didn't drop the name of your class, I don't think.
Well, that wasn't senior year. Maybe it was senior year. I took a class called Water. It was
like David Foster Wallace, like This Is Water.
It was just a class about everything that.
It's a senior elective.
It was a senior elective.
What are you guys doing up in Michigan, man? This Ann Arbor life.
Yeah. So one of my 2 classes was water. But
I took a class called Weather and Storms at Stanford. That was one of the athlete classes that people took. So I can't actually talk that much shit.
Honestly, that sounds cooler than water. And so I would say I partially started writing this because I was worried that my brain was gonna like just
melt,
atrophy during senior year, and it was a forced function for me to keep up to date with markets. Then the selfless side was like helping students prepare for job interviews. They're telling me that they don't like the Wall Street Journal. I want to write something that's better. The true story probably lives somewhere in between. I'd been writing this for a little while, and the original product was a Microsoft Word template converted to a PDF attached to an email. Mm-hmm. There was no landing page or website. If you wanted to
daily,
I would say it was daily, other than days where I missed it.
Okay.
And
how many people were on the list in those early days?
Yeah. So the first email went out to like 45 or 50 people.
Okay.
And it started with like AE Pi people in the business school, and my family. And then I would just start getting messages from people saying, hey, I heard about your daily roundup. Can you add me to your listserv? And I would type in email addresses. It was just a listserv I was managing. I want to say it was December of 2014 or January of 2015. And I sent out an email basically saying, I want to take this more seriously. I didn't even call it a business, but I just want to take this to the next level because there's appetite. Let me know if you want to help out. And I sent that email to my readers. Austin was one of those readers. He reached out saying he had ideas and he wanted to help. And we met in the Winter Garden, which is like the main lobby area of the business school. And we basically just talked for an hour about what the future of this newsletter could look like. That was like our first conversation.
So what piqued your interest about it, Austin? Like, why did you get excited? Because you were, if I recall correctly, you were younger then at the time, but you were on a similar financy looking path.
Yeah, so I was a sophomore, and I'd say there were two reasons. One was high level and one was about the brew. So high level, by sophomore year, I had started to ask some questions about this investment banking path. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is actually what I want to do. I talked to people who had done this banking thing, and it seemed kind of terrible. Like, it seemed pretty awful. 100-hour weeks and building Excel models and 8 to 10 years before you have any real responsibility. And I said, I kind of want to hedge in case this thing doesn't work. I had a couple friends who were more entrepreneurial minded. I actually listened to a podcast series that I assume you've listened to. It was the Sam Altman class at Stanford. It's 10 episodes. It's, Paul Graham does one.
Was it How to Start a Startup?
Yeah, I think it's called How to Start a Startup. And I listened to that and I was like, whoa, this is way cooler than the whole banking thing. Like, how do I get into this? So I always had this idea that let me hedge in case the banking thing isn't for me. Still 100%, 99% thought I was going to banking. I spent the summer after sophomore year in banking. And then selfishly, I read the Morning Brew thing, or the Market Corner thing at the time. And I was like, this is actually pretty good. No one reads the Wall Street Journal. You walk into the business school, you'd walk down the stairs, there's a stack of 10 newspapers, and you leave at night, and that stack would still be there, basically. No one would read it. And I bought into the idea that you could actually make the business world more engaging. Now, did I think it was a real business? No. Like, I agreed with that professor. But there was something there about it. And also, to be honest, like, people were signing up and I was reading, but it wasn't good. Like, the no PR answers, it looked horrible. Like, it was terrible. I don't know if we have a picture that we can put up, but the original newsletter looked terrible. There was a bull and a bear
fighting
word art fighting. Like, it looked horrible.
Yeah.
I was like, if I'm reading this thing and it's written like okay and it looks like shit.
It's written okay.
He was reading the entire Wall Street Journal cover to cover and summarizing it in like 3 hours. How good could it have been? But I still read it every day. And so I think it was that. It was the classic thing where product sucks, but people still use it. Like, it's like Amazon. Amazon looks terrible.
Right.
It's the worst designed site that I use, yet people use it. So I thought that was interesting.
The thing that's so interesting to me when I hear the story recounted is like, we're doing a podcast called The Crazy Ones. This is like kind of a crazy idea at the time from a business standpoint. Like, today, it's super obvious to say, like, you can start a newsletter, you can monetize it via sponsors, you can like build a business, you can do courses, products. Like, there's so much opportunity around an email list. At the time, that wasn't really a thing. Like, the creator economy, there was no VC that was like, yeah, I'm a creator economy investor. That wasn't a thing that people were going after. And yet you guys had this spark and decided to start doing it and pursuing it. Part of it sounds like it was like you had time on your hands, and part of it sounds like your alternative kind of sucked and you weren't that excited about it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's just a few things that made it successful in the early days. One, we didn't intend for it to be a business. And if we did, and we thought about it as a business in 2015, I think it would have failed. We would have made short-term decisions to make a little money here or there, but because it was a side project, we didn't.
That's an incredibly important insight, by the way, for all listeners. I talk about this constantly of like, whenever anyone started something, they were just pursuing it out of like pure passion, interest, excitement, and joy of actually doing it. The process on a daily basis was so amazing to them. And that, paradoxically, is actually what allowed it to scale and succeed. They weren't doing it for the like, hey, let me monetize when I get to 5,000 customers. I'm going to build my 6-figure revenue stream. Like, those things are really, really difficult because then you're just focused on prize the whole way along the way. You're not process oriented. So that's like, I think that's a super important insight for people to take away.
Totally. And we got there, right? 2017, we kind of stalled the math, and we had so many people saying, hey, this newsletter thing's dumb. And Alex and I would sit down like once a week or once a month, and we'd look at the Excel model and be like, these people are telling us we're stupid, but we're acquiring subscribers for X. We're making Y off them. So if we can get the list from 50,000 to 100,000, I think the profit number is going to double. And then I think we get to 200,000. And I think there were a couple of moments, I don't know if you felt this way, but there were a couple of moments where I was like, either we have the numbers, so either no one else sees this or we're complete idiots. And I think there were times where we second guessed ourselves because we're like, the numbers are so clear. It's the most obvious Excel model in the world. Costs stay the same, revenues go up, profit goes up.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the best part about it is how simple of a business it is, yet no one understood how simple it was. There's a few things that I'd add, which is, I think the point about something not feeling like a business from day one is such an important thing, because it reminds me of when I interviewed Tim Ferriss, and one thing he had said was like, he loves interviewing non-business people, like people who are just like on the fringes of the internet and society, who are like, when I talked to him, I said, what are you going down the rabbit hole of right now? And he was like, archery and compound bows, animal tracking, and one other thing. But he gave me the reason. He's like, because the people who are best 0.1% in the world at this are so genuinely obsessed with the craft, because they can't be in it for the money because it doesn't pay well. And there's something so like amazing about that to me, is like, you actually go to people who can't be motivated by money and you find